Hello, and welcome to the Solutions Manual podcast, where we take life's greatest challenges and turn them into simple, practical solutions that you can actually use. I'm Sarah, and I'm fascinated by nutrition, well-being, and human performance.
And I'm Maciek, a physician and medical leader passionate about helping people unlock their potential. What unites us is a deep fascination with how the human brain works and how to train it.
Together, we will show you how you can rewrite your life story by retraining your brain.
Join us as we explore the intersection of science, the brain, leadership, and personal growth. Let's get started.
Welcome back to She Moves, a special Solutions Manual podcast. We are joined today by Cristina. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yay. So why don't you introduce yourself? And then we have a lot of really interesting questions for you. And we'd love to learn all about you and all the advice you have to share with our listeners. But I'll hand it over to you to introduce yourself.
Okay, great. So I'm Cristina Hallinan. I currently lead a team of scientists and engineers who are responsible for drug product validation at a major pharmaceutical company. I've worked in the pharmaceutical industry my entire nearly 2-decade-long career at this point, with the majority of my experience being in manufacturing operations. And I started my career as a temp just to get my foot in the door, and worked my way up from being an operator to various leadership roles within the organization.
So let's jump into, if you think back to your early influences and where you started, or some of those really pivotal moments early on, maybe what made you start? What was interesting about your career in manufacturing? Did you want to stay? What were some of those really key moments early on that reinforced your decision to be where you are and move up and want to grow?
My background is I have a BS in nutrition and dietetics, and then I went back and got my master's in biotechnology. And staying in the area that I resided in, there weren't a tremendous amount of opportunities in that type of space from a career standpoint. So the pharmaceutical company that was closest to me didn't have openings at the time. So really the only opportunity to get my foot in the door was a temporary position. So I took that, and then the swine flu pandemic took place, and there were some different areas within the manufacturing site that were ramping up production and licensing new facilities. And so I had an opportunity to take a full-time position as an aseptic filling operator. And at the time, I remember my first day of work in that location, I sat in the bathroom stall and I started crying because I was like, I don't want to work in manufacturing. This isn't what I want to do. And very quickly, I learned that I actually have a passion for manufacturing. And there's so much about it that really aligned itself with what my ways of working were and my personality type. And I worked with so many different types of people with so many different backgrounds. And it was always exciting and, never boring. And I never really had my sights set on anything in particular. It's just I enjoyed continuing in the success of what I was already doing within that role. So as I matured a little bit more within my career journey, and I was a lot more thoughtful and intentional about what my next steps were going to be, that's where it was really an appreciation then for the foundational elements that I was able to get from those experiences on the shop floor. And it's still a lens that I use to look through today in all aspects of my career.
So, Cristina, 20 years ago, you've mentioned 2 decades in the industry. It probably looked very different than it looks today, especially for women starting to make their first steps in highly regulated, highly controlled, and historically at least, relatively male-dominated industry. So the 2 things I'm interested in: what was the most difficult thing at the start, and how did that change, if at all, over the last 2 decades?
Um, you know, I often participate in different forums and even smaller group sessions with, younger women that are looking for advice or, mentorship within the industry. And I would say that my own personal experience, like I never really felt like like an outsider or that I was not progressing in the right way because of my gender or anything like that. It was just like that was my personal experience. I know it's not the same for everyone. I do say that one thing I do notice, and even today, is that women in the industry or all industries really, like even if there are more opportunities for, it's not just you're kind of penalized because you go on a maternity leave or something like that. There's different opportunities for parental leave for men and
Hmm.
those types of opportunities. But I would say that still in 2025, even if you have a partnership at home, a
Hmm.
lot of just the logistics and planning and mental load of running a household and a family still very much reside on women.
Hmm.
And even if everybody's working the same amount of full-time job and everybody has the same professional, um, you know, uh, obligations,
Hmm.
the the personal stuff still often falls within
Hmm.
women. And so I would say, especially became a parent with like different return to office experiences for people coming back from COVID and new ways of working. It allowed a lot of flexibility when people were primarily working from home and weren't expected to come into the office every day, where I think it had now more of an impact on women returning
Hmm.
to the workplace, because you still have all of those obligations to manage at home, um, on top of everything else. So
Yeah.
I would say that just that aspect of things became the most impactful and apparent to me in terms of the disparity between gender within the workplace.
Hmm.
Yeah. How do you define leadership?
Being someone who can walk the walk and being someone who has the ability to help remove roadblocks for a team. Um,
Hmm.
just leading by example, I would say, you're not just because you're in a certain position of power or organizational structure, it doesn't mean that people are going to listen to what you say or want to do
Hmm.
what they're doing because you're asking them to. That's not what a leader is. That's a manager or that's someone from an organizational structure who has power over them.
Hmm.
A leader is someone who's able to inspire people to want to get on board with you and kind of go on that journey with you. And sometimes it's harder than others. And I think in my experience, some of the periods of time where it was the hardest to be a leader is if I myself wasn't fully on board with something.
Hmm.
Um, but that's why I think it's really important just to bring your team along, letting them know the why behind things as much as you possibly can, because if you can be a good storyteller and you can, you know inspire the okay, I understand our mission, I understand why we're doing the thing that we're doing, I understand that it's going to be difficult to do it because of the timeline, because of the amount of work, whatever. But if you can get people to understand that and get on board with it and trust in you that you have their best interests
Hmm.
in mind, I think that it helps. Yeah, I
But
think there's
that's,
definitely power in transparency for sure.
yeah, but that, and do you think that that's or learned as well?
Yeah, and I think for me, it stemmed as something that I didn't necessarily go out of my way to learn, or even something that I really have any memory of paying attention to in some of the early leaders that I've had in my career. It was born really out of being an informal leader amongst early teams, I would say. Just naturally taking the lead and if you have people that want to get on board with what you're doing, great. It always feels better when you can do it naturally that way as opposed to, being appointed into something.
What's your advice for giving feedback and receiving feedback?
I think so for receiving feedback, sometimes on paper it seems like it's the easier of the two. Uh, but there's a difference between being an audience to feedback and to actually receiving it,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's one thing if you're sitting there and somebody's telling you something about what you're doing that's good, or there's an opportunity to improve or whatever, and you can listen to it and choose to do with it whatever you want. But I think actually receiving it means listening not just to the words, but again, going back to what's the intention behind it? Where is this person coming from with what they're telling me? What experiences have they had that validate the information that they're giving to you? And even if you don't agree with it at all, taking a step back and thinking, okay, well, what did I do to give that impression? If that's truly not what my intention was behind something, or I definitely didn't want to come off that way, what did I do or say, or how did I act that person took that from what I did, or
Mhm.
you know what I mean?
Right,
I think receiving the feedback is really an opportunity again for self-reflection, whether you agree with it or not. There's always something to be taken away from feedback that you receive,
Mhm.
again, whether it's good or bad. If you can focus more on the piece, people giving advice and what their intention is and what their motivation is behind what they're telling you, I think sometimes that's a little bit more meaningful than the actual words that they're saying or the deliverables that they're advising you to take. Where are they coming from? Why are they giving this type of advice? What experiences have they personally had in relation to what the topic that you're looking to discuss is? Sometimes I think that that's a little bit more helpful to take a step back and look at, as opposed to just like the actual words or specific advice that they're giving.
Mhm. I
yeah.
think I think this is a significant challenge in general in mentoring that is quite prevalent in multiple industries that people are looking for mentors and they're looking for advice, but they're often not self-aware enough to realize that hardly anyone has been exactly where you are and is heading towards where you are heading. Yet we are very easily falling into that trap of believing someone else's opinions or believing someone else's journeys and trying to walk in someone else's shoes. So yes, that it's quite refreshing to see someone with a lot of self-awareness and an ability to kind of self-guide yourself as well and be able to distinguish and look behind or beyond the words that are being spoken and uncover people's motivations. That's quite an interesting input.
And I think it's something that comes with experience too. The more that you interact with different people and you um, just observe different ways of handling yourself within a situation, and just getting a general sense for working with all different types of people, and being able to put all of that as context that serves you for your next interaction.
Mhm.
It's definitely something that comes with time. And then giving feedback, it's kind of coming at it then from the opposite side of it. What is your intention behind it? Are you really coming from a place of helpfulness? Are
Mhm.
you um, are you understanding where the person that you're giving feedback to is coming from as well? Like what were their experiences in a certain situation? So I think it's always uncomfortable to deliver maybe negative feedback. But I think the more that you practice it, the easier it gets. It becomes more normalized. And also receiving that feedback to the people that you give it to regularly, it becomes more normalized for them too. So I would just say, like, practice makes perfect with that. And it could be very minor, or it could be like a super heavy conversation that you need to have. But the more you have them, the more comfortable you are giving and receiving feedback.
Do you have habits, daily habits, or things that you do now to help you show up at work, show up at home, keep your hobbies, keep your head level and your head clear? Do you have things that you like to do outside of work that really, if you didn't do it, you would notice a difference?
Yes. So I think the number one thing for me would be I work out every day. I get up early, I work out every single morning.
Mhm.
So I'm the type of person that the second my eyes open, my mind just starts racing, 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 racing. I'm thinking about my schedule, what meetings I have coming up that day,
Mhm.
tough discussions I may have planned, the laundry I have to do after work, what I'm going to have for dinner, like things like that. So the first thing I do when I get out of bed, I get dressed, I work out, and it allows me to put my focus and my energy on something physical. And
Mhm.
it's just a standard routine that I make a point to do every day. And like the regularity of that is comforting, and just the routine of it. And it just sets the tone for
Mhm.
my whole day. Um, I also feel like doing it first thing in the morning, like I know I feel the same way every single day when I get up, as opposed to putting it off until after work. And I don't know then what kind of day I had, or what I
Mhm.
had for lunch, how tired I'm going to be. So it keeps me accountable for not making excuses not to do it too.
Mhm.
Yeah. 'Cause inevitably you'll be tired and stressed, frustrated. Yeah.
Yeah.
Does it help you also just manage your schedule, manage your headspace,
Yeah.
prioritize what you know you need to do in that day, but
Mhm.
also take care of your body too. And yeah, set the tone for the rest of the day, inside and out, it sounds like. So,
Yeah.
What I find most interesting in what you said is that it's for you the morning routine and the physical exercise in the morning is also a way to take care of the busy brain in the morning. Is there anything else that you do or any practices that you do to help your mind settle during the day or after a difficult day?
Um, well, I think, when I think about putting myself in a good mental headspace, I kind of cringe a little bit at, like, maybe some of the bad practices that I have. Speaking
Hmm.
of like the TikTok coma that I may find myself in
Hmm.
sometimes during the day. But there's definitely some positive practices I use as well. So I definitely I make a point to spend time every day focusing on gratitude
Hmm.
specifically. Um, so it could be in regard to anything really, but spending focused time reflecting
Hmm.
on how grateful I am in many different contexts. So
Hmm.
it could be in the context of working out, right? Do I love waking up at 4:30 in the morning every day? Nope. But I'm absolutely grateful for the ability to move my body, and for, you know, to feel stronger, to feel like I'm in good shape. If I go outside for a walk, I'm grateful to experience nature, the trees, the sun on my face, the birds chirping. If I'm carting my son back and forth to different activities instead of focusing on the disruption to my schedule, I'm grateful for the time that
Hmm.
I have to spend together one on one to have a talk.
Hmm.
Um, Talking about doing the laundry with my husband. Like, I'm grateful to have a partner to go through
Hmm.
life with, and you know share the burden of some of those things. So um it definitely keeps me focused on the
Hmm.
things that are important, which can be
Hmm.
very easy to lose sight of when less important things demand a lot of your focus and attention. And so just trying to stay present in that.
Hmm. That's a very powerful. It's also very common for experienced leaders
mhm.
to have developed a habit of daily gratitude and appreciating the everyday moments. I think a lot of people take their lives for granted. So that's one element of well-being. But we also know that gratitude is a powerful tool when it comes to becoming a leader. So, yeah, it's quite refreshing again to see that that becomes part of your daily habits. Is
Well,
there,
and I
yeah?
think too, just from to go back to that the gratitude piece and how it related to
Mhm,
my career, even like having those early experiences, even outside of what my current career trajectory is, like working for tips as a waitress or working on the shop floor as an operator or working on an off shift, like
mhm,
it when I then went on to lead some of those different organizations in some of the roles that I used to perform myself, like that's an additional layer of gratitude where it's like, I am so grateful for these people that show up every single day and do this work day in and day out. I
mhm,
can appreciate what they do and what their day looks like.
mhm,
And it's something that just it informs the lens which I see them.
mhm. Yes, of course, because they could have chosen to do something else.
Yep.
The gratitude, is it something that you had to learn, or is it something that was always there?
I think it's something that I learned and more so from my personal life as opposed to professionally.
Mhm,
I lost both of my parents in a very short period of time, like right around when my son was born. And it totally just, it changed everything for me because it really was like, appreciate, focus, and be present with the things that you love and appreciate. As often as you possibly can because you can't take
mhm.
for granted that it's always going to be there. So
Yes.
it started in my personal life for sure, but
Mhm,
it's a practice that just like I said, it allows me to stay present in
mhm,
whatever situation I'm in. And sometimes it works better than others. Some days it's easier to focus on gratitude and presence than
mhm,
others, but it's something that's top of mind to make sure
mhm.
that I make a point to do.
Okay. But so for you, then it's a learned skill, and it's not something that was ingrained in childhood. It's more something that you have picked up later
Yeah,
in life with realizing that, sometimes you don't know what you've got until it's gone, right?
right.
Okay. And that's just one question here. Do you have any tips or ideas or recommendations for people who are trying or building their gratitude skills?
I would say that just setting time aside to focus on something in particular, whether it's gratitude or it's, some other intentional practice that you're looking to do, getting into some sort of routine or building it into your daily activities. I think sometimes it's easy at the end of the day to look back and say, well, I wouldn't have had time to do that XYZ thing. Um, but of course you would. If you built it into your day, you absolutely would. So
Yes.
if it was like a timer on your calendar for 5 minutes to
Yes.
just sit and think and not worry about what's on your to-do list or what meeting you have next or what report you have to write. And it's just, okay, for right now, I'm just going to sit, I'm going to reflect. And
Hmm.
like I said, whether it's on gratitude or if it's something else that you want to just focus your intention on, just making a point to schedule it like you would anything else can help. And once you kind of get into the practice of doing that, then you don't have to be as regimented about it. I would say it would come more naturally.
Exactly. Right. In addition to maybe gratitude, what advice would you give to your younger self?
I think just generally speaking, it would be like don't be afraid to take big swings
Hmm.
and and trust and really just trust in your abilities. Um,
Hmm.
like I think my younger self, I was way more concerned with having a perfect track record than taking big risks. So, the more I would find success in certain things that I was doing, the less likely I was to deviate from the strategies that I used for that particular thing because I didn't want to stop having great results on something. And so I think it really prevented me for a long time from taking bigger risks because, well, what if I wasn't good at that? Or what if I didn't do a great job at that? Or what if I didn't succeed? And what I kind of learned was failing often leads to the most impactful lessons that you walk away with.
Mhm.
Um, and so the bigger the swing, the bigger the impact. And when something fails, which it will inevitably, just focus on, okay, so what am I going to take away from that instead of, oh my God, it failed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what does the Christina a year from now tell you today?
um, just take your own advice.
Oh, okay, that's good.
Yeah, no, I think it goes back to like the more experience that I get, the older I get, the more I learn to trust in my own abilities, trust my gut, trust my intuition. And so just continuing to really just listen to that
Mhm.
inner voice and sit in your feelings and see how some a decision or a next step or an interaction with someone or how you're going to play a certain issue out or something like that. Just like sit with it for a second and really pay attention to yourself.
Mhm.
And I think I learned that more and more with each passing year. So I would say next year, I'll have a lot more experiences to look back on and lean on.
Well, it's very interesting to hear, which I believe is largely true, that people sometimes get in their own way, in the way of their own success. And in your case, it seems to be you've overcoming this with experience, or you've managed to learn to step out of your own way, right? As you grew and you learned more and more. Is there something else that you are aware of at the moment that might be holding you back or preventing you from achieving something that it's still on your, let's say, future aspirations list?
Um, well, I mean, I think that there's no job or position where you're gonna love every aspect of it 100% of the time. But I think as a general rule, uh, as soon as it begins to feel stale or monotonous, and looking back on a lot of the experiences that I've had working in manufacturing and the industry in general, I use the term monotonous and as a bit of a misnomer, but you get the idea. um, like if you find yourself having like a lower tolerance for issues or roadblocks that were once exciting challenges to overcome and now are more of an annoyance, it's probably a good sign that you're ready for something new. Um, so I think recognizing that feeling and knowing you're ready to move on, but being unsure of what that next step should be, it's again important to set aside that specific focus time to do some reflection and think ref, some actual reflection on your previous experiences. What brings you joy? What do you definitely know you don't want? What's the next challenge that you're looking for? If you look at the overall context of all of your career experiences, how do you want to grow? Because I think if you can't visualize for yourself what your next step is going to be,
Mhm.
it's impossible for you to put together a plan of how to get there. And I'm very like action oriented. So for me, if I find myself just the most uncomfortable place for me personally is when I can't visualize what my next step is going to be, because once I have that, I at least can start to take action of how I'm going to get from point A to point B.
Yes, that things are not easy or difficult, right? The 50-pound dumbbell always weighs 50 pounds. I mean, only you can get stronger, right? And that comes with practice, right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
when you get up at 4:30 in the morning.
That's right. It's a lot heavier at 3:30.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time. This is really, really useful, really helpful. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for thinking of me. I appreciate it.